Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. In this channel, I'm helping you level up your communication skills. And in this episode, we're entering the world of storytelling to discuss whether or not stories are a form of technology. I'm going to give you a little trick in order to control your emotions. The next time that you see something that's extremely beautiful, something that's borderline divine, something that's magical, with conscious awareness, I want you to call it art. I don't care if it's a person, I don't care if it's an object. With conscious awareness, call it art. Even though you may not notice anything immediately, what's happening is invisible. You're creating an invisible feedback loop between yourself and this art back to yourself. And this loop, as it's getting activated by you consistently reminding yourself that this is art, what eventually happens is something even more magical. This art piece is deepening your emotions. It's allowing you to feel richer internally, which is evolving your perception. And you're able to view this art form from a completely different lens, a lens that others can't view it from. It's like an inside joke, basically, with this art. Words have a huge impact. And just like the word art can make something poetic, the word technology can make something real. Imagine you're at work right now and your manager comes and says, "We are incorporating the latest technology into our business processes." Immediately you're like, "Man, I can't be sleeping in the cube anymore. Things just got real. We got new technology. Things became real." What do I mean by real? What I mean by real in this situation is that it's not our subjective experience that's predominant. It's basically an objective reality at this point, and it's a shared understanding among a group of people. So technology makes something real. What we normally do with stories is that we put it in this category where it's an art form, and that's good, but it could be better. It could be better because storytelling is one of the few acts out there that can wear multiple different hats. Not only is it an art form, it's also a form of technology. It too is something that is extremely real. And once we can start to perceive the realness regarding this act, that's when we start to tell more stories. So let's get started. What is technology? Let's get that out of the way. Technology equals applied science. But I get it. Now, this is one of those definitions that leaves us with more questions than answers. Armani, I'm in my 50s and I used to hate science back in high school. What is science? I don't really know what it is. Well, science for dummies is a way for us to understand the natural world. How do we understand the natural world? Well, we understand it by observing, by running experiments, and eventually generating insights. So that's a very basic understanding of what science is. But back to the 50-year-old individual, they don't care. They're like, who cares? It's just a bunch of nerds interacting with nerd-like activities. So this individual is highly disengaged from this form of science. It's not real to him yet. You go up to this guy and you're like, "Did you know the speed of light is this many miles?" He doesn't care. How can we make it real in their world? Well, let's say you're an engineer with business-like tendencies, so you understand how people work, you understand how science works, you understand how technology works. You look at this 50-year-old and you're like, "Oh, you think science is not relevant to you in your life? Well, you see this phone that you're holding right now? Well, that phone is communicating with the Bluetooth speakers due to the radio frequency, okay? It's a part in the electromagnetic spectrum of light. It's extremely relevant to you." And when he's seeing it in his real world that, whoa, you're telling me that I am allowing my technology to speak to each other due to concepts in science? You nod your head eagerly. That's when it became real. So technology in this situation made an invisible concept highly real. But we don't want to make the mistake that technology is something that's strictly digital. What about this? Is this a form of technology? Yes, it is us understanding the natural world, us using the natural world in order to create something that provides value to a guy like me. So earlier I said that technology equals applied science. We could also say it's technology equals structured knowledge. Structured knowledge? Wait a minute. This sounds exactly like a story. That's exactly what a story is. It's us gathering knowledge and structuring it in a way which makes it real to the consumer. So with a little bit of this logic, a little bit of this tracing back of understanding true definitions of meanings, and playing around with some words, stories are now becoming a form of technology. And how important is this form of technology? Well, anytime we're incorporating perception into the equation, immediately stories need to be factored in. This is why the more higher that we rise in a field, and the more perceptions that we have to deal with. Let's say we're hiring someone. Let's say we're managing someone. Let's say we're running a business where we're dealing with customers. Immediately, perceptions are being involved. And what's the only way to communicate with perceptions? You could use a whole bunch of other phrases, but eventually it just comes down to structured knowledge. Random data points are just that. It's just random data points. It's like going back to the 50-year-old man and saying, "Did you know the speed of light is this much?" Doesn't mean anything. And anytime perception is involved, in whichever context, stories immediately need to be graduated from. It should not only be viewed as an art form, it should be viewed as technology to drive change. In the business atmosphere, in the engineering atmosphere, in the YouTube atmosphere. And the more that I don't care how technical you are, you could be the most technical engineer right now, the more that we start to perceive stories as something that's extremely real, the more that this ambiguous field turns more real in day-to-day concepts. A story is now equivalent to a machine. What is a machine? A machine is a bunch of interrelated parts connected to help someone. This is a machine. This is a machine. Now, if we're relaying ourselves into the world of ideas, what's a story? It's a machine. It's characters, it's conflicts, it's lessons, it's your past experiences combined in a unique way to deliver value to someone else's perception. The more that we start to understand the true definition of science, the true definition of how we process the world, structured knowledge, structured knowledge, structured knowledge, the more that stories are starting to become something that's extremely tangible in our lives. The more tangible that things become, the more that we gradually win our senses over too. Our mind can now get involved, our ears can get involved, our eyes can get involved, and everything starts to become more real. And storytelling becomes a very holistic process. It's the most rich way of doing systems thinking in a very creative fashion. So as I said, storytelling is an extremely unique concept because it's capable of wearing multiple hats. Is it an art? Yes. Is it a technology? Yes. What else can it be? Well, experiment for yourself and see why a lot of people who storytell for a living can't fully ever define a story. It's because anyone that is trying to tell stories is eventually able to make that phrase alive in context to their own life. Turn it from an art form to a technology, and that's the only way there's a holistic experience that's created in terms of the narrative. Thank you for joining the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel, and I'll catch you on the next episode.